Hello, it's Mark and Pete.
Welcome to the show, and this week's colourful conversation, the United Kingdom, the price of togetherness. After much intense political campaigning, Scotland has finally voted no. And that basically means that the United Kingdom will remain as one.
Yes, the question put in this referendum was, should Scotland be an independent country? The answer is no, so it remains part of the United Kingdom.
Exactly. But there has been much debate as to whether there was a price to pay for including Scotland as part of the United Kingdom. Now, as we have seen already with the intense debating from many politicians, some still have some angst against what that really means for the future of the nation.
Yes, I know here we have a clip of Nigel Farage, leader of the United Kingdom Independence Party, commenting on the concessions made in order to try and make sure that there was a no vote.
As a last-minute panic measure, Cameron was so worried he'd lose the referendum that he made a series of big promises, or vows, as they were called. One was to give more devolved power without a word or a thought for the English, and secondly was to continue the funding formula whereby the UK Treasury pays out more per head in Scotland than it does in England. Now, this morning, he, playing catch-up, is trying to address that, but I think the reality is that for the last 18 years we've seen devolution within the United Kingdom, with England frankly being ignored, and with English voters feeling they're picking up a big bill, and we've still got Scottish MPs in the House of Commons behind me voting on English-only issues.
And so to the English, this very fact that there were Scottish MPs voting on English-only issues, well, it doesn't happen the other way round. It's not allowed to happen the other way round with the current devolved powers. This seems just simply unfair.
And undemocratic.
Well, yes, you're not being represented fairly because you're having people from effectively another country voting on issues that just relate to you. Of course, on whole Britain issues, the whole of the Union issues, then everyone should be allowed to vote. But just on English issues? Is that really fair when Scotland has its own parliament?
Exactly. But there
question.
have been some commitments and quite a number leading into this campaign. So one of the things that has been mentioned is about whether England specifically should have its own parliament. Now, at the moment, it is governed by Westminster. So the English people should possibly have its own assembly and have the right to determine its future, whereas we don't today.
We don't. I mean, there have been short-term fixes suggested. So, for our listeners that aren't familiar with the setup of how the government runs here, the way that the country is run is that you have a government, but the government isn't the whole law-making body. It's a parliament. There's a whole discussion takes place, a debate that takes place, on which the whole parliament, not just the government, has to vote, and then laws will be passed. And this takes place in something called the House of Commons. Now, as they meet to discuss and then make these decisions, you could on some days have just English-only affairs on that day and make sure that non-English MPs, or if it's something that relates to, say, England and Wales but not Scotland, Scottish MPs are not included. It's possible to do that. A little bit cumbersome. What happens if it doesn't fill a whole day with that sort of business? You can see that there are problems with it, but maybe it's a short-term fix to stop people feeling unfair. But what is the long-term solution? Is it possible to actually have a separate English Parliament in the same way as there's a Scottish Parliament?
Yes, and I think that is something that almost certainly is going to happen going further forward. But going back to the point about the price of togetherness, if we are to continue as a United Kingdom, it does make sense that each of the four representatives, so that is England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, should have their own assemblies. But the vote was quite interesting because...
So by an assembly, you mean a parliament?
A parliament, yes.
They are,
a minister, basically.
Technically, they're called assemblies in Wales and in Scotland, are they not?
Yes. So. But The one thing that happened in Scotland was it was very clear that there was a much divided nation. So, for example, the final result was 45% said yes, they wanted independence, and 55% said no, they wanted to be part of the United Kingdom. And most notably, Glasgow in particular voted yes, i.e. for complete independence. So if you think of the unrest and the anxiety that they have about the way they are managed, the way that they have been neglected, you could say that being a union member, effectively somebody who is part of the United Kingdom, doesn't fairly represent them. So clearly there was a strong message that was sent out there.
You could say that, and our question today, our main question is what price keeping this union, and one of the prices that could be one of the costs, I guess you could say, of keeping the union could be dissatisfaction in, for example, Glasgow, which voted for independence in Scotland, when they were against the union, the majority of them in Glasgow were, and yet they're staying in. What is going to be the attitude of Glaswegians to this?
Well, exactly, and so
I feel privileged with the fact that it was part of our answer and response to this that you, Mark, have written a poem.
Well, yes, I thought it was quite appropriate on this occasion.
Now, listener, can I just interject? Please don't turn off.
No.
I know there's an option to scrub forward in the podcast. Don't do that.
No.
Give the fella a chance. Listen to this poem.
Well, on behalf of all those Glaswegians who
It
really
might be good.
do have an issue with being part of the United Kingdom. So here's a little poem called United Jack and Housewife Jill. Up the workers and down the hill come Union Jack and Housewife Jill, drunk with sloth and raising glasses, spilling hate throughout the classes. For they who are the humble meek, slaves unto the working week, days and nights of endless stress, clocking on with great duress. Oh, free them from this mindless grind, they long to leave it far behind. Jack skimps and saves for bricks and mortar, Jill sets the meals with bread and water. And so the story grows much sadder. Jack slid down the social ladder. The upper class point in pails of laughter when Jill, his wife, came tumbling after.
Yes. Well,
I think that reflects the feeling of the yes vote. I mean, the suppressed worker, the one who really wanted to sort of get his voice out there. The upper classes, the people who really reflected the no vote. Let's be fair.
Look, you'll sort of justify yourself here, but I actually thought it was quite good.
Oh, good.
I'll take it by surprise. So the interesting thing about poetry is it's quite a personal reaction that you often have to it. So please let us know. Send us a tweet to @Mark and Pete, and we'll gladly, or at least I'll gladly hear your views on the poem, whatever they're. But no, I thought that was quite good. What I was thinking immediately, I thought of comments that are made about the fact that I forget which commentator said this, but it was a TV commentator said the thing about Scotland is that they hate Conservatives.
Yes.
And I think that's obviously not true of all people in Scotland, but generally, seeing the voting patterns in general elections over the years, not many Conservative MPs get a seat there.
No.
And at the moment, there isn't one.
No, exactly.
So the idea that Glasgow is now committed through the Scottish vote, voting no to independence, to still being part of a United Kingdom which includes England, which they associate with being the Conservative Party's country.
Yes.
That means that they've tumbled down. They go tumbling down after that vote.
Exactly.
And it really. I mean, I think that could well be a feeling. And I've seen pictures on the news of the sort of dejected look of those who've been campaigning for the yes vote. And I read the comment by Andy Murray, the tennis player, who is of course Scottish, even though claimed for Britain because he's good. He tweeted saying you should vote yes. I don't know his exact wording.
Yes,
and he was talking about this was the flavour of what he was saying was that this was a time you could grasp. There was a hope for a great future of Scotland set free. I guess really misunderstanding the situation, but that's not the point. The point was the feelings were here is an opportunity for new hope.
Well, that was Glaswegian.
And it's been dashed.
I mean,
that maybe in Glasgow that's
true.
more than elsewhere, but there still will be that feeling because, as you say, about 45% of the Scottish electorate. Well, it's not quite that. Let me just correct myself. 45% of those who voted of the Scottish electorate voted for independence.
Well, that's correct.
And it was 87% voter turnout, so that's still quite a high proportion.
Well, although that obviously
Just
was
do the math.
a good reflection of what the Glaswegians thought, what about the rest of Britain? So it might be worth just, let's hear a few points from what the rest of, some of the people in Britain thought about the vote.
If I could vote, I probably would have voted no as well.
No, I don't think it will change anything.
I think the people in Scotland, a lot of them are stupid. And the thing about it is that the cost of living would have went up, everything would have went up.
There will be change, and I think it would affect the rest of the UK as well. Because I'm starting to hear England, Wales and Northern Ireland are also starting to demand powers as well. So you never know. I guess it's good for everyone.
So that's some reaction from the public on the vote. However, that's not really the main point. What was clear was that the Westminster Parliament was panicked into giving sufficient commitments to the Scottish people with the promise that they would get more power. Now, as a result, that means that we potentially are in a worse situation. If you think about where we are today, from moving forward in terms of how we manage the nation, is it right that Westminster was able to give those powers without even allowing any of the other nations, like England, Wales, Northern Ireland, to even have a vote? What are your thoughts?
Well, what I think is that this panic situation of trying to effectively buy the vote in the referendum to make sure that the union didn't break up. Well, it didn't need to happen for a start because it simply was a panic. But the problem with it is that it's in itself undemocratic to offer to give over these powers in order to buy the Scottish vote in a referendum. There were no referenda in Scotland, England and Wales. So what right did the politicians from Westminster have to offer these extra powers to Scotland without it being debated?
Do they even need to make those promises?
Well, I think that they didn't. I mean, if you just look at the polls of the opinion polls in Scotland leading up to the actual referendum vote, there was, except for one poll, the polls all showed a difference between of the two polls of a few percent. It was always over 50% for the no vote. They didn't need to panic, and it ended up being a 10% difference altogether, 55 to 45. So they did. I think they didn't need to do it, but now that they have done it, they've made promises. David Cameron, the Prime Minister, called them vows. Is a vow more serious than a promise? I don't know, but perhaps it's because he's been brought up before on saying you haven't kept your promises, so he called them vows this time. Who knows why he called them vows? But he's made these vows which bringing on board the other parties, but not having a referendum of the whole country. So he's got the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party and Conservatives on board to look at making changes to give Scotland more powers. Now, there's problems with that. There's a history of England and English people losing out in terms of the money and social security, etc., available for England as opposed to Scotland. There's something called the Barnett formula, which calculates that. It ends up giving quite a significant proportion more to Scottish people than to English and Welsh people, and this difference continues, plus extra rights and extra rights over making decisions on taxation.
So what you're saying is it's going to be disproportionate for people in England.
Yes, it's going to be worse. It's going to be a greater disparity between the two. And I understand that William Hague, a British Conservative politician, has been given the task of looking at the British Constitution, most of which is unwritten.
Yes.
It's not just one document. You've got to look at lots of different.
Well, it's interesting you say about the written.
He's going to be looking at it. I think he's got 6 weeks to write a report.
Exactly.
And somehow come up with a way to change Britain constitutionally.
But interestingly, It should be noted that the Americans, when they were creating their constitution,
Yeah.
took over 4 months to develop that. And what's more ironic is that Benjamin Franklin, one of the greatest minds that have ever been seen, not just in America but throughout the world, was part of that exercise. But there's another irony as well, that in 1759 he was actually given an honorary Doctor of Laws degree by the University of St Andrews in Scotland. And yet,
Yes.
you know, there he was, this great mind, having really paved the way to a great constitution in America. And we've got William Hague, who's going to take 6 weeks.
I mean, yes. I mean, I think William Hague, may not want to be one of the great minds of history, as you're, I think, rightly describing Benjamin Franklin. But he's a competent politician and thinker. But to try and rewrite the British Constitution within 6 weeks is a bit of a tall order. I think it would have been, may even have been beyond the reach of Benjamin Franklin,
possibly,
and his friends who he got together with to draw up the U.S. Constitution. But I mean, how they think that that's an answer, I don't know. I think perhaps, this is me speaking with my cynical hat on, I think perhaps he, as in William Hague, is not meant to come up with a solution. He's meant to give a breathing space. If you say someone's going to look into the constitutional possibilities for the future, and they've got a report to write in 6 weeks' time, you're kicking the can down the road. You're allowing there to be
a breathing space.
A breathing space, yes.
A breathing space that might suffocate the United Kingdom for the long term.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that if you look at these panic measures, there's another issue that crops up. We are going to be going in 2015 to another election, which is a general election. So all these commitments that are being made currently by Westminster are actually going to be re-examined when we go into that election. How is that going to work, and what price do we then have to pay again a second time to actually start moving into a new parliament?
I mean, what a muddle, what a mess we've got into because of this decision to go for a referendum on this subject, which didn't need to happen.
Exactly.
We didn't need to have gone down this road at all. And why was that? Why was that done in the first place? I can only see that it was done for short-term political gain.
Yes.
So that there wouldn't be as much opposition to the then government from Scottish MPs, because they were being offered this referendum. And while it was still in the future, then that was sort of a carrot to try and draw them in and keep them on board. But now that's has happened, we'll see that was a very costly carrot.
Yes.
And it was something that it was a big risk. That could have broken up the union, and that would have been a disaster. I think that if someone looking from outside would say, why was this even discussed?
Yes.
Scotland was not in a position to go it alone as an independent country, and wasn't indeed planning to do that. It was planning to try and apply for membership of the European Union. What a mess we've got into because of short-term thinking.
Yes.
And we on this show, Mark and Pete, I'm speaking for you here, Mark.
Well, thank you very much.
We think here that one of the biggest problems in planning politically, well, I guess, and in terms of businesses as well, is short-termism, trying to turn a fast profit or trying to turn things around for short-term political gain ends up storing up big problems for the future. And this way of thinking has to change, or we're going to get ourselves in muddle after muddle.
Yes. So to that point, now we are in the situation where we have, as you say, that there has been high political stakes. David Cameron has taken a high-risk strategy. You could argue that he rolled the dice, he took the gamble. Okay, it has worked. But now we need to move forward. We need to think more long-term. We have an opportunity now as a nation to decide what we want to do, how we structure ourselves, how we manage ourselves far more effectively. And to your point, that we do not need to take these short-term gambles. So, with that in mind, how do we then start to sort of put those measures in place to make the United Kingdom strong, not just in terms of its domestic issues, but also on its international issues?
Well, I mean, that is the question, and I think that it's a question that needs to be looked at properly and in depth. It's a question that we need to take time over. It's a question that we can't turn around in 6 weeks to try and honour a vow that was made in order to gain a no vote in a referendum. We need to think beyond that and just say, look, we do need to make changes to make Britain work better and to make it run in a fairer way, in a more democratic way, but also in a more effective way. We need to have a long-term strategy. Otherwise, we're going to have the result that we're going to have another mess down the road.
Exactly.
There's going to be disquiet that will need to be dealt with, and will be just putting out fires and coping with crises instead of being able to forge forward in what is, in the world situation as it stands. We need to be a strong and united kingdom in order to be able to cope with the problems of globalisation, the problems of the unsettled Islamic world, all these different problems in the world. We need to be a united kingdom and strong in order to be able to succeed. But there's no point panicking. There's no point doing these things quickly and then ending up being in a worse mess down the road.
So with that in mind, that's our opinions. But what are your opinions? So join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.